Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well and having a great Monday night. Tonight we're going to be talking about the tropics and mainly just Tropical Storm Rafael, and we'll also be talking about the tropics in the second half of the video, but we'll be mainly talking about, again, Rafael in this video. I will have chapters in the video, so feel free to go into any part y'all want to see, whether that be the tropics part of the video or the severe weather part of the video. So let's go ahead and get started. So first here, looking at our 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook, we do have Tropical Storm Rafael here, which is a 996 millibar tropical storm, and it is a 45 mile per hour tropical storm right now as of the latest 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time update. Then we also have an area up here kind of north of Rafael, and that has a 20% chance of developing within the next 7 days, not 20 days, 7 days. And I'm not really going to be talking about this in the video just because we have a lot of other stuff to cover, but again, this has a 20% chance of developing within the next 7 days as of the latest update at 10 p.m. tonight. So now looking at Zoom Earth, then we can see Rafael just a little bit better here. So here's the latest satellite imagery for Rafael, and so you can see this area again in the Caribbean, and so this is kind of slowly strengthened throughout the day and became a tropical storm not too long ago. Earlier in the day, around the 4 p.m. update, it was reclassified to a tropical storm, and then before that it was just a tropical depression, and then a potential tropical cyclone before that. And so again, looking here at Zoom Earth, and we can see satellite as well as the cone of uncertainty. And so if you look here closely, the blue area is tropical storm warnings and the red area is hurricane warnings. So we do have tropical storm warnings up for all of Jamaica, as well as hurricane warnings up for the Cayman Islands. Then if you look over at Cuba, we have hurricane warnings up for quite a bit of the western part of Cuba, and then into kind of central Cuba, we have tropical storm warnings up there on the northern side and southern side of Cuba, and then kind of into the east central and eastern parts of Cuba, we have tropical storm watches up for those areas. And we also do have tropical storm watches up for parts of the Florida Keys. Then if we zoom out here, so still as of the latest update, it is Rafael's forecasted to peak at around a 90 mile per hour category 1 hurricane, and then it would eventually kind of make its way into the Gulf and weaken further into maybe a tropical storm. But again, that is the current forecast from the National Hurricane Center. But looking back here, it is expected to be a 60 mile per hour tropical storm by the time it gets closer and makes it as close as it's going to get to Jamaica. And then when it goes kind of in between the Cayman Islands, it'll be a 70 mile per hour tropical storm. And then by the time it starts impacting Cuba, it could be a 90 mile per hour category 1 hurricane by that point. And then eventually weaken just maybe a little bit, and then still kind of remain maybe a category 1 hurricane by the time it gets over and across Cuba, then head into the Gulf of Mexico, and again eventually start to weaken as it gets further into the Gulf of Mexico by that point. And again, that would be forecasted to kind of start impacting Cuba by Wednesday morning, and it is already impacting Jamaica, and that'll continue throughout tomorrow morning on Tuesday, and then by kind of Tuesday evening tomorrow, it should start impacting the Cayman Islands. And that is again the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, the cone of uncertainty. So here are the key messages for Tropical Storm Rafael, and this is again from the latest 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time update for tonight. So if y'all want to pause the video and read that, feel free to. I'm not going to be reading that in this video, but y'all can pause that and read that for sure. And then just real quick, we'll look at rainfall potential here. And so some places and some spots in kind of southern Jamaica right here could see isolated 8+ inches of rain, and then even into parts of Haiti, even 6+ isolated inches there, even into parts of Cuba. Some isolated 6+ inches of rain possible in these areas, and then in that dark green color, 2 to 4 inches are possible in those areas, and then the lightest green color, that this color right here, 1 to 2 inches possible in all those areas where that green is. But again, the heaviest amounts will probably be into kind of parts of Cuba and especially southern Jamaica. So now looking at some of the weather models for Rafael. So first off, looking at the 0Z GFS, and this will continue to head toward Jamaica and eventually not hit Jamaica, but start to heavily impact Jamaica early tomorrow morning. And that will continue through the Cayman Islands and eventually pass through there as a strong tropical storm. And then the GFS has this strengthening a little bit before it makes its main landfall in Cuba sometime maybe Wednesday morning to Wednesday afternoon, and that could kind of change a little bit as far as landfall times there. But again, that is from the GFS, and then that has that heading into the Gulf of Mexico and kind of heading to the northwest, and then just kind of lingering out and getting picked up by another trough into the central U.S., and then getting merged with the flow and just heading up into the kind of southeast as maybe just a tropical depression by that point. Nothing major, but again, I will continue to watch that if you live in kind of the eastern part or the central part of the Gulf of Mexico, especially the Panhandle of Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, maybe Louisiana as well. Just continue to watch that for any potential impacts maybe later this week, but again, is not expected to be anything major at this time. Then looking at the European here, the 12Z European, same thing here, has this quite a bit weaker, and actually only has this at a 998 millibar storm as it hits Cuba, and then only at a 1,000 millibar storm or 999 millibar storm as it heads through the Cayman Islands. And it has the landfall in Cuba maybe sometime early Wednesday morning. That continues and heads off of Cuba by Wednesday night. And then again, I forgot to mention this earlier, but I would say by even late Wednesday night or Wednesday evening, the Florida Keys could already start to be impacted by this just a little bit. And then by Thursday morning, that will continue off to the west. And then the European has this going a lot farther to the west and eventually kind of merges with the flow and just dissipates finally as it gets into the western Gulf of Mexico sometime maybe later this week. But that is it for the European. Then looking at the icon model here, the 0Z run here, pretty similar with the European 1,000 millibar storm as it goes through the Cayman Islands and then hits Cuba as a 998 millibar storm. Then heads off into the Gulf of Mexico, strengthens just a little bit and heads off to the west, and then eventually gets picked up by the flow, and then not really picked up, but impacted by the flow up here into the continental United States, and just dissipates up into the western Gulf of Mexico. One reason, really one of the many reasons why this storm won't strengthen when it gets in the Gulf of Mexico is, one, the sea surface temperatures are a lot cooler, not a lot, but a couple to several degrees cooler than that in the Caribbean, and so it's not a favorable environment for intensification. And then you also have some shear and some dry air mixed in with that, so the storm just does not have a good environment to kind of live in once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's definitely a good thing for anybody in the Gulf. So just keep that in mind. And then quickly we'll look at some of the hurricane models here. And so we'll look at the HWRF. And so it has Jamaica here tomorrow morning on Tuesday, has those outer bands really impacting Jamaica, and then that will continue on and eventually impact Cuba, maybe as a tropical storm or low end hurricane early Wednesday morning. Has that going past Cuba, impacting maybe kind of the outer bands, impacting the Florida Keys, and then has that eventually getting into the Gulf of Mexico and weakening quite a bit later this week. Then looking at the HMON model here, that isn't fully out yet. We'll look at the 18Z run here. Jamaica still is going to get impacted pretty hard by this tomorrow morning, and that will continue and eventually hit and impact some of the Cayman Islands, and then has that pretty much at a Category 1 hurricane Wednesday morning, hitting Cuba, heads across Cuba, gets quite a bit closer to the Florida Keys than the HWRF model as a hurricane, and those outer bands will even impact, could potentially even impact parts of southern Florida, the southern peninsula of Florida, and hit those hit spots of the Florida Keys. And then that has that continuing on into the Gulf of Mexico, and still has it kind of at maybe a low-end tropical storm or tropical depression by the time it gets near land again. But at this point, it would be very weak and would not be much of a threat at all, which is a good thing for sure. And then finally, look at the HFSA model for Rafael going to the 18Z run, has an impact in Cuba, getting pretty close to, not Cuba, Jamaica, Jamaica, and then gets it headed towards Cuba and the Cayman Islands here, and then eventually has that hitting Cuba again early Wednesday morning as a hurricane, and has that maybe hitting some of the Florida Keys with those outer bands, and has that eventually getting to the Gulf of Mexico and again weakening, and would have that maybe at a tropical storm by the time it would kind of get near Louisiana, Mississippi, or even Alabama. Again, it's kind of far out to pinpoint some of these details with the secondary landfall. But again, just watch if you live in these areas here, especially into the western panhandle of Florida, into Mississippi, Alabama, and kind of eastern Louisiana. But again, that is the models, and then the hurricane models for Tropical Storm Rafael. Now switching to the severe weather threat part of the video, and first looking at our 01Z Day 1 convective outlook for tonight, and this will be updated in about a little over an hour from now, so this will probably get downgraded just a little bit as we get further into the night. But we do have an enhanced risk here into parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and a small section of Texas. Around that is a slight risk, a level 2 out of 5 risk, all the way from Missouri down into Arkansas, and then a small section of Oklahoma, and then into a larger section of Texas there, and just a tiny sliver of extreme northwestern Louisiana. Then we have a marginal risk, a level 1 out of 5, from Louisiana, extreme southeastern Iowa, into Missouri, Arkansas, small section of Oklahoma, into Louisiana, and a larger section of Texas. And we do have a 10% hatch risk here in this yellow area here, and that is that hatch risk is a 10% or greater probability of EF2 to EF5 tornadoes within 25 miles of a point occurring in this area here, and that is for the entire 10% risk there, which is that yellow risk. Then with this brown area here, that is a 5% risk, or surrounding that yellow 10% risk. And then we have a green, which is a green risk, which is a 2% risk of a tornado occurring in this area right here, surrounding both of those 10% and 5% risk. Then looking at our wind risk here, we have a large 5% wind risk with a yellow 15% risk inside of that 5%, and in the middle here a 30% risk here, which is the red risk, and that is a 30% risk of damaging winds possible there. And so looking finally at our hail risk, we just have a 5% hail risk, and this is from Missouri into Arkansas, southeastern Oklahoma, and Texas. And again, that is just a 5% hail risk for tonight as of the latest 01Z update. So now looking just quickly at the HRRR, as you can see here, we do have this just very long line of storms extending all the way from Illinois into really Illinois and down into Texas. And as we continue over the next couple of hours, we'll have to watch these kind of supercells embedded in this line for that tornado wind and hail risk, just that little bit of a hail risk, but especially kind of further to the north where that level jet is a little stronger. We could see a little bit of a tornado threat up there, but our instability has been cut off a lot over parts of Arkansas and Missouri for the night. So kind of the more concentrated severe weather risk will stay further to the south, and that'll probably get changed with the latest update, but still a wind risk will persist with this entire line of storms that'll continue to move to the east throughout the night and then into tomorrow morning on Tuesday. And so really this line, I would say this line will get maybe around at its peak early tomorrow on Tuesday before the sun rises. And you have this line. This is a pretty impressive line all the way from Illinois into parts of even southern Texas. But again, that wind risk and tornado risk will persist with these storms, as they head to the east throughout the night into tomorrow. And so again, you're going to have that instability kind of taper off throughout the night, but you're still going to have pretty moist air and rich moisture up into Illinois and Missouri, as well as Arkansas, mid to upper 60s dew points there, and even lower 70s dew points here into parts of eastern Texas and Louisiana as well. And that'll get cut off as you go throughout the night and into tomorrow morning, as that low continues to progress to the east. But real quick, just looking at the NAM as well and comparing it, a similar look here with that long line. Maybe that line will kind of weaken a little bit throughout tomorrow morning, and then potentially kind of reconfigure again and get going kind of tomorrow evening. And we'll talk about tomorrow's severe weather threat in just a second, but the NAM has a nasty line of storms just within the next couple of hours, and it really has it at its peak throughout the next couple of hours. And again, this is an all hazard threat with this line as it moves east, so just keep that in mind. But again, that is for today's severe weather threat, or tonight's severe weather threat, and that is for the 3 kilometer NAM. Now looking at tomorrow's severe weather threat, and this is for Tuesday, November the 5th. And so we have a marginal risk up here into Wisconsin, and then we also have a marginal risk down here into parts of southeastern Arkansas, a small section of Mississippi, as well as far eastern Texas and into Louisiana. And so we just have a 2% tornado risk with both of these risks. And again, that is for the southern and northern risk, both marginal risk, and that is just a 2% tornado risk in those areas. And we do have a 5% wind risk with these two separate risks. This one into to the north of this one into Wisconsin, and that is again a 5% risk. And down here to the south, we do have a 5% wind risk with that as well. And there's not a hail risk with both of these marginal risk at this time. So just looking at the HRRR for Wisconsin tomorrow, you're going to have kind of showers throughout tomorrow morning, and then as you get into tomorrow afternoon, you're going to have a kind of secondary line of storms that'll move through again tomorrow afternoon and evening, and this will be that risk responsible for that wind and tornado. The storms responsible for that wind and tornado risk, and so you will have a kind of a stronger low level jet, obviously, because you are closer to that low pressure, and you will have another kind of not low pressure, stronger low level jet out to the east, but there won't be really any instability out there at that point. But just quickly looking at this instability, you're just going to have just a very slight amount of instability, probably peaking again into just the early evening hours tomorrow on Tuesday, and that is again for Wisconsin in that for that risk. And so now just looking at our other risk down into parts of Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, going back here to tomorrow morning. So you're going to have storms already forming early tomorrow morning on Tuesday, and then you're going to have that line that'll continue on to the east, and then you'll have that line kind of strengthen a little bit and get back together, and kind of get a little more organized there kind of tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening, and that'll continue through Mississippi and Louisiana. And then it even shows another line trying to get organized into Mississippi and Louisiana and even Arkansas tomorrow evening, and then that'll head on and just continue on to the east. But one thing to note here, I would definitely kind of watch some of these areas that'll get rounds of heavy rain for a little bit of a flooding risk tomorrow into maybe early on Wednesday. But again, that is for our risk there, and you'll just have kind of just rounds of storms and showers possible there, and you'll have plenty of instability. Let me go back a little bit here. You'll have plenty of instability into these areas, and that'll really peak around the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow on Tuesday, with the strongest instability into Louisiana and Mississippi there. And then just quickly looking at a low level jet, you won't have much of a low level jet, but kind of watch that area early tomorrow afternoon into early tomorrow evening with that little bit of a stronger low level jet, but that'll continue to pick up to the north, and you'll lose most of your stronger low level jet with that throughout that time period. And that is again for Tuesday, November the 5th. And so finally looking at the day 3 convective outlook, and this is for Wednesday, November the 6th. And so we just have a marginal risk down here into the Florida Keys, and this is again from what will be potentially Hurricane Rafael, but what is Tropical Storm Rafael at this time. And Rafael again is expected to kind of get near the Florida Keys, and you'll have that potential for water spouts and a tornado if it gets onto land, but you'll have that potential for water spouts in that area. And so you just have a 5% probabilistic at this time, but that is again a marginal risk at this time, again for Wednesday. So we'll just have to continue to watch that and see how that plays out as we get closer to that time period. But I won't show the models since I showed them kind of earlier, but again, that is going to be it for the severe weather part of the video. So that's going to be it for tonight's video. I really do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I'm going to try to get another video out maybe before landfall or Rafael gets into the Gulf of Mexico, but I can't promise that. I'll at least have one kind of in the middle or later this week. But again, that's going to be it for this video, and I do really appreciate all of y'all watching, and I hope y'all stay safe and have a great rest of y'all's night.